all the speakers, please turn on your video. Welcome to the Let's Talk DRR series number 6 on nature-based solution for disaster risk reduction. This is our last session series for this year. We're happy to let you know we already have with us Professor Shahbaz Khan, Director and Representative of UNESCO Regional Science Bureau for Asia and the Pacific as our moderator. And our three prominent speakers, first, Dr. Irina Pavlova, Associate Program Specialist in Division of Ecological and Earth Sciences from UNESCO headquarters in Paris. Second, Dr. Anissa Triyanti from U-Inspire Indonesia and Postdoctoral Fellow of Utrecht University in the Netherlands. And last but not least, we have Dr. Ranit Chatterjee from U-Inspire Alliance and Postdoctoral Fellow of Kyoto University in Japan. For all participants, please monitor the announcement in the Zoom chat box on how to ask questions, fill in the attendance form, as well as questionnaires for the certificate. Without further ado, I would like to give the time to Professor Shahbaz Khan and to all the speakers to start today's session. Professor Shahbaz, the time is yours.
Thank you very much, Stella. It's really wonderful to be part of this very interesting DRR webinar series with U-Inspire, of course, and UNESCO. So I congratulate colleagues from U-Inspire as well as from UNESCO Office Jakarta for working together to make many of the concepts on DRR very clear. And one of the concepts we are going to talk today is a very important concept, and especially the focus changing from very strongly engineering-based solutions to nature-based solutions, working closely with nature in finding solutions to many problems, including disaster risk reduction, but also nature-based solutions for food security, nature-based solutions which can help us for one, health. As you know, health is a major concern during and after COVID, and very importantly, green economy, where nature-based solutions can hopefully create many jobs. And one of the areas is UNESCO sites, which can be used to create payment for ecosystem services, which can help create local jobs. But let's today discuss nature-based solutions. And I have three very, very eminent colleagues, and of course, very young colleagues. We will be discussing from their experience what nature-based solutions or other definitions of solutions which are very close to nature-based solutions are there, how they relate with this work by their own work. Very accomplished, three of them with their doctoral degrees and working on postdoc ideas. So let me start first with Dr. Irina, our colleague in Paris, working on interesting earth and ecological sciences areas. So dear Irina, most welcome. And you come from Russia and now working in Paris. Tell us about your own journey a little bit, and also how nature-based solutions or similar approaches have influenced your work, your PhD, and what you are doing currently.
Good afternoon for Asia region. Good morning for European time. Well, it's 8 in the morning in Paris. Happy to be on board. Thank you very much, Shahbaz, for the invitation. So yes, I'm Irina, and I'm originally, even if I live for more than 10 years in France, I'm Russian, and I'm among these last generations, let's say, that who were born in USSR time and grew up during the 90s. So it was quite a tough transition period with a lot of uncertainties during the time when I had to choose my career path. And I should say that it was quite a challenging decision, because neither for my parents, neither for myself, there were no, there were new realities and we should adapt to. So I'm saying so because in the beginning of 2000, when I had to make my choice, enter the university, I didn't choose the path of business-oriented education. That was very common choice at the time, but I was already at that time fascinated by and inspired actually by my geography teacher, who was telling us about Kyoto Protocol and this concept of greenhouse emission regulations in accordance with economic capacities of countries. It was totally innovative to me. So I made my choice and entered the university, Moscow State University, the Faculty of Geography. Again, it was a choice with a lot of uncertainties, with unclear career perspective. But anyway, once I entered, I never regret my choice. So my specialization during my master, it was glaciology, the science of dealing with glaciers around the world in mountain areas. And afterwards, I continued the path with the PhD. It was joint supervision by scientists from both Russian Academy of Science and National Center of Scientific Research in France. So the topic of my PhD, it was on landslides. There is a type of landslide called debris flow that are triggered by intense rainfalls. My topic of PhD was about this type of landslides in French Alps and how they would change their frequency and magnitude due to climate change. So I used the outcomes of climatic models and interpreted them with statistical models, and main conclusions was that yes, there is a high chance that at the horizon of the end of this century, by 2100, there would be much more debris flow, this kind of landslides in French Alps with bigger magnitude. Well, of course, I gave some recommendations of how these processes could be mitigated, and among them, of course, there are different kinds of solutions, engineered solutions, so it's pure concrete constructions. From the other hand, they could be completed with other kind of more natural, and here we come to this term, natural solutions that could prevent a slope from the erosion, maybe not deep-seated landslides, but the surface part can be mitigated very well by different kind of vegetation. So it's then
very comprehensive introduction. If I can just ask one follow-up question, dear Irina, you said you have used some models to understand this debris flows. Very important for many parts of the world as part of the disasters. Can you tell us what are the most sensitive parameters of those models?
Thank you. Yes. This type of landslide, debris flow, that consists of big stones, so solid part material, and also triggered by intense rainfall. Of course, they are due to double parameters. One is climatic, so there should be sufficient amount of water, liquid water. So it's there are certain thresholds from that debris flow starts. So, for example, and it depends a lot on climate. So in French Alps, we say it's starting from a threshold of, if I'm not wrong, 30 millimeters per hour with the duration then with 3 hours. These conditions can launch the process of debris flow. Another important part is geomorphological, so solid component. There should be, for this type of processes, enough of solid material. So that is correct in the mountains. So, so solid parameters and rainfall.
Well, this is very important, and you have given us a very good idea. The first one is if the intensity of rainfall is very high, so a lot of rain happening within a short period of time, and if there is abundant supply of the materials, then of course it will be very, very fast debris flow. And this is a problem for all of us as we have deforestation And as the hydrological and climate cycles are intensifying, at the same time, we have not the proper vegetation, and there is a lot of material which is ready to flow. This will become a big problem. So, congratulations for your journey from geography to glaciology to debris flows, DRR, and now working in UNESCO headquarters in Paris. So, I will come back to you, Arina. So, this is very important that we understand the processes first. We use the models, we understand the physical links, and then we start to understand whether we need a nature-based solution, which can be very effective, or whether there can be engineering solutions. So, dear colleagues, this is very important start for us, and we are thankful to Dr. Arina. Now I move to another very bright young doctor, Dr. Ranit. Ranit comes from architecture, very important discipline to make us safe, from designing houses all the way to many structures which are necessary for our existence. So, Ranit, can you please give us an idea about your journey and how architecture comes into DRR? And do architects really think of the nature-based solutions?
Thank you, Professor Shahbaz, and a very good evening from Kyoto. I'm sure the participants are joining from different parts. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. That's a very interesting question. I'll possibly take you through my journey. So I graduated as an architect way back in 2004. And somehow this disaster management thing came in the day I was moving from my house. You know, in India, we have this, parents are very protective. So my parents were taking me, going along with me to drop me off at my university. And then they dropped me off. And while coming back, they were stuck in one place. And during this super cyclone, Odisha super cyclone, many of you might have heard, because that was one of the setting point for many of this disaster management activities that happened beyond 1999. So I lost contact with them for almost 2 months. And many of my friends who were from the same part of India also lost contact. And I still remember very clearly that those 2 months were really tough because you don't know what exactly is going on. And then in 2001, when this Gujarat earthquake happened, that was again something where we had friends in Ahmedabad and they were stuck. And we tried as an architect that how can we contribute? But then we were not allowed to be part of it. They said, no, this situation is very risky. So after graduating, when I was working as an architect, I had this thing at the back of my mind that someday, if possible, I can contribute some way to disaster management. But there was no opportunity, because when I took up architecture in 99, that was a very new field in India. Hardly people were like taking it up as a career option. And when it comes to disaster management, possibly it's still a new field. It's still an emerging field when I'm talking in 2020. So I got this information from one of my friends that there is this new course which has come up with Tata Institute of Social Sciences, which is a very prestigious social science institute in the world. And I was very delighted that there is something where I can learn what I have possibly missed out in academics, and something which I can bring into practice. So I applied for this course without knowing much about it. And there were not many people whom I could have contacted who have worked in disaster management. I applied, I got selected, and I was given 4 days to make a shift. You leave your job, shift to disaster management course. That was a very difficult journey. But I said, okay, if I want to do it, I have to do it, and I have to take this decision. So I left my job. I shifted to the university in next 4 days. I sold my car. I had a car and I sold it. I said, I'm going to pay my fees. And I joined. And the first instance was I went into Bihar floods in 2008. That changed the whole scenario of how I looked at disaster management. Till then, it was more like, okay, this is something which may be more academic I am doing. But when I went to this real flood situation, it changed because I saw how people are suffering, what is happening there. And that's when I said that this is a field which I love and which I will stay together for whatever it comes. So, and being an architect, I guess it's very important, because when we say architect, we also use sometimes for even God, that God is an architect. We are builders, and we cannot be destroyers. So when we build, we have to take care of what we are building, the safety of that building, and the people who are living in it should also not only feel safe, but also feel secure, and their well-being is associated with the space, with everything that is around there. So I guess as an architect, disaster management is very much part of it. And as an architect, we become a jack of all trade, master of none. We learn landscape, we learn designing of spaces, we learn building materials. Everything is part of architecture. That's why it's a 5-year course in India, not a 4-year course as in BTech. So you have one more extra year and then internship. So I guess many ways as an architect, we bring in the nature-based solutions as part of our design. If there is a, say, tree around the plot, we don't cut the tree. We make it a part of our design so that it becomes an integral part of the design. Or say, if you are doing a paving, you would use possibly paver blocks alternately so that the grass can grow and the water can percolate. So these are very small things, but it becomes an integral part of the design process, and also how you look at the climatology as a part of your design. So I guess.
Thank you, dear Anit. That's a very, very comprehensive introduction. Let me be a little bit tough with you. There are so many problems in this world. And many of the engineers and architects, including myself, we have made wrong choices in our design. Our cities are concrete jungles. Is that right or not? So, how do we
Absolutely.
bring these ideas of nature based solutions into our university curricula? That's a challenge. When you were a student of architecture, did you study DRR as part of your undergraduate studies on architecture in your 5 years?
Yes. In fact, there was no such kind of inclusion of DRR as part of the study program. But after I graduated, there has been a certain consensus from the government to include DRR, but it has also not been very effective in kind of integrating DRR or climate change as part of the study curriculum.
So that's very
Especially at the
important for colleagues to understand, because we are not criticizing anybody, but these are the gaps which may have been left. As you said, these are very new disciplines. And our dear colleague, Mr. Aditya Kodyat, has kindly facilitated a memorandum of understanding between architects in Indonesia and with the UNESCO to design vernacular structures which can be better suited for the coastal cities, for example. So we need to continue to bring these ideas, and I congratulate you for following your heart, your journey into DRR, selling your car, but I'm sure you will save many, many lives in the process. Not because you're a bad driver, because you're a better person at DRR. So we will benefit from your expertise for long times to come, and you are doing a wonderful job. Now let me move to Dr. Anisa, another very important success story. Anisa is also very proactive in the United Nations group on children and youth. Anisa, you come from Indonesia, now you are in Netherlands, you have done a PhD, you are following a postdoc. Can you also give your journey? How did you come into this field of disaster risk reduction and especially nature-based solutions?
Thank you for the question, Prof. Sabas. And also, I would like to first thank the organizer for inviting me. UNESCO and also the Inspire Alliance. It's really an honor to be here with all of you. And also say hi to all the participants around the world. Hopefully you can have something to learn also from this webinar. So my journey, I don't think I have very inspiring motivation like Irina of Ranit, because I was born in Jakarta, and also I was raised in Jakarta, a very busy city. And I think when I was growing up, I was more kind of thinking about how can I be successful in the future. And success for many of Indonesian students and teenagers are to have a good job, to have a high salary, to work in, government institution as civil servant. So that's success for us in our generation. So I was thinking to apply for a bachelor degree in engineering, electrical engineering, because it's such a developing field. I think most of the development countries really need more engineers to develop their country, to increase economic growth. But also, in the other hand, I feel like there are some problems with environment, especially seeing my city when I was growing up in Jakarta was really busy and a lot of buildings. We don't have so much green spaces. It's also kind of like my motivation then to apply for environmental science, geography and environmental science for my bachelor degree. But it was my second choice. So my first choice still an engineering field. And then, I end up studying in the Faculty of Geography in Gadjah Mada University in Jogja. So I moved from Jakarta to Yogyakarta to study for my bachelor. And I was fascinated with all the material or the curriculum about geography. I think it's a very special field. I think Irina, as a geographer, would know this as well. It's like mother of all science. We learn all layers of Earth. But not only physical, but also human aspect, social aspect. And I think by the end of my bachelor degree, I realized that I'm more interested to understand the human and nature interactions. So that's why I choose to focus on human geography subject.
This is a very interesting journey. So you wanted to be engineer, but
Yeah.
I think you made the right choices, dear Anisha. And you are inspired by, you think you are not inspired. I live in Jakarta. I'm inspired by Jakarta simply because it's a city which is a living city. It is a city where you can apply many of your ideas. Can you now give us an idea about your PhD and how can you relate it to Jakarta? How can we solve problems of Jakarta?
Sure. Well, that's a very tough question and also very controversial, I guess. Now it's really like, how do you call it, a lot of discussion about how to save Jakarta from sea level rise and climate change adaptation in the future. When related to my PhD, I did my PhD at the University of Amsterdam, and I choose a topic of ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction, especially focusing on the governance aspect. So the governance structures, the actors and their interaction, and how to actually improve ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction effort. And I was focusing on the case of mangrove ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction, looking at the pristine mangrove forest in Tamil Nadu, in Pichavaram in India, and also compare it with a more human-made mangrove areas, which is in Demak in Central Java. It's near Semarang, a big city. And realize that this is really an example of a good practice of how we can use nature for protecting our coastal area, especially for future, sea level rise and also climate change impact. And this type of nature-based solution is very easy. I mean, what you need is actually a suitable place, suitable physical condition, and also support from the local communities. But if we talk about Jakarta, for example, is a very high asset, is a capital of Indonesia. There's a lot of industries, there are a lot of real estates location to be protected. So using a concrete protection is most favorable. But of course, we have to think about the external risk, the residual risk of implementing such concrete or engineering-based approach, like building seawall, for example. It might work for a short term, but it maybe not work for a more longer term. So we need to combine with nature. And if we talk about coastal area, we cannot just talk about Jakarta. We have to talk about the watershed, what happened in the process of the upper watershed and also the adjacent coastal area, like, for example, Semarang and Surabaya, for example. We have to think about the whole coastlines. And I think it's very important to balance this different type of coastal protection. And there's a new innovation how to combine this. It's called a green engineering. I think Ranit would also know more about this, to combine the gray structure with the green structure. with the hope that this combination would be more sustainable in the future.
That's very interesting. So the green engineers normally wear a green cap, or they do design differently?
Yes, indeed.
I'm joking with you, Anisha. So if I wear a green cap, I become green engineer, or do I need to do something more?
Well, I think it's a matter of mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, you have to think more about sustainability, and talking about sustainability means that we cannot resist the natural process and the natural services, and we have to always find a way to balance this, human-made structure with the nature.
No, that's really very interesting and important, and I congratulate you for your journey from geography to understanding this human interaction, social systems, and governance. Governance is our very big challenge, and it's part of our Sustainable Development Goals, SDG number 16. Very, very important. So we need to have proper institutions and the processes. And I also like in your approach, of course, mangroves versus seawalls, whether there is one against the other, or we need to think about both engineering and nature-based solutions. But very importantly, from your introduction, it's clear we need to take a systems view, a much bigger view, entire coastline and the upper areas. Only then we can be successful. So with that introduction, dear colleagues, we have come to a very good understanding of our three speakers. So we have Dr. Arina, coming from very strong scientific background from glaciology to understanding the debris flows, to understanding the climate and hydrological processes and ecosystems. Then Dr. Neet, who converted from being an architect to a disaster risk reduction specialist and has been contributing many areas. And then, of course, Anisha, I would not call you, Anisha, only as a geographer. I would say you are a systems thinker, and you are bringing governance and systems thinking together. Let me now continue this journey of our interaction. It's not really an interview or it's a talk show. We are interacting with each other and learning from each other. And also, Anisha had mentioned we need green engineering, green professionals working together. So, Arina, you are one of those green professionals in my view, and you are working in ecological and earth sciences division in UNESCO, which has many interesting programs. Of course, Man and Biosphere program, Global Geoparks program, and of course, the disaster risk reduction. There is a lot of discussion on eco system-based approaches, and there are nature-based approaches. Tell us what in UNESCO you are currently doing, and how ecosystem-based approaches link with nature-based solutions. So your understanding will help us understand it better.
Thank you, Shabazz. Well, let me start maybe with some examples, right, to set the scene and of our thematic. Anissa already gave a couple of examples, but let's imagine different ecosystems. So, for example, coastal ones. Mangrove forest, you see well this massive rooted vegetation, or coastal or sand dunes, a massive sand dunes all along the shore. Or let's move to mountains, where we imagine deep rooted forest growing on the steep slopes of the mountain. Of course, well, images are clear, and you might be right by thinking that all these ecosystems, they of course might contribute potentially to mitigation of disasters if they, or natural processes that might happen. Mangroves, forests, sand dunes to protect the shore from different coastal erosion, including big processes such as tsunamis. In mountains, we're thinking more about different kinds of landslides, against slope erosion. So here we come to the definitions, and we already mentioned, and well, the title of our discussion today, it's nature-based solutions. So what are nature-based solutions? These I would say it's an umbrella term, which includes different type of ecosystem-based approaches that deal with a different type of challenges, including disasters and climate risk. So the nature-based solution umbrella, it includes several domains. It's environmental management, it's also climate mitigation measures, it's also climate adaptation, so-called EBA, ecosystem-based adaptation, and also eco-DRR. So this ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction, it's also a concept that includes managing in sustainable way to conserve and to restore ecosystems to reduce disaster risk. Regarding the terms nature-based solutions for DRR or eco-DRR, I would say these are very close, or not, well, if not even synonyms, because of course concepts, they are very traditional and used for many centuries, if not thousands of years, but in the modern science, these terms, eco-DRR, NBS, they are quite modern, and within our community, they were set less than a couple of decennies. So there are too fresh, and well, we can easily use both of them, and nature-based solutions for DRR and eco-DRR. As for UNESCO's work on eco-DRR, these thematics is among one that among 8 top ones that we're working on. Of course, there are several UNESCO teams and field offices that are working successfully on the topic. I would mention the division where I'm working, a division of ecological and earth sciences, that deals with ecology and ecosystem services. It also is a secretariat on Man and Biosphere program with all the variety of biosphere reserves with different ecosystems and all around the world. Also colleagues from hydrology that coordinate a large component on eco-hydrology. For example, World Water Report in 2018 was focused on nature-based solutions and had a chapter also on NBS for disaster risk reduction. And for the local level, there are solutions that are implemented. And here again, I will mention UNESCO sites, especially the nature ones, biosphere reserves, UNESCO global geoparks, natural world heritage sites, which are perfect open air laboratories where eco-DRR solutions could be implemented to reduce risks. I'm thinking, for example, about Philippine rice terraces, one of these iconic sites where, well, everybody, this site was inscribed for its agricultural techniques, the rice terraces, but it's also eco-DRR solutions where we stop and protect the slope from the erosion by terracing it. So classical for NBS.
No, this is very comprehensive. So if I can quickly summarize, so nature-based solutions can be at any scale, if I can say that. They can be at a local level, that we have a vegetation-based solution for letting a slope to become stable. Ecosystems are maybe, as Anissa has before described, like a systems approach. So eco-based approaches. So ecosystems can bring the nature-based solutions at a much bigger scale. Like, for example, eco-hydrology is a tool, but integrated water resource management is at a river basin level. So we can bring those solutions at different levels too. So maybe ecosystem-based solutions or approaches bring nature-based solutions as part of the tools. If I can say, would you agree with that, dear Arina?
Yes, and of course, well, all the solutions, they are at the scale of natural hazards. And I would say there are, well, all different scales of natural hazards from large scale, tsunamis, earthquakes, and so on, going toward more local. We mentioned already landslides that are quite local, quite specific in one specific catchment. So, and solutions are appropriate, and the management of these solutions would be totally different. And it's all under umbrella of solutions are under umbrella of nature-based solutions.
Good, very good. And also UNESCO's work on UNESCO sites and sustainability. This is very important. And in Asia Pacific, for the information of the colleagues, under the Japan Fund's interests, our dear colleague Ms. Sachi and Mr. Ardito are working together for documenting solutions for DRR in the UNESCO sites. If you're interested to know more, I'm sure Sachi will put a link. And this work has also been done at the global level. So this is very important part of understanding some of these approaches. So let me come to Anisa before I go to Ranit, because as we have already started understanding the systems, Dr. Anisa, you mentioned governance is very important. Governance. First of all, let's unpack what is governance, what is bad governance, and what is good governance. Can you give us some?
It's a very interesting question, Prof. Sabash. Well, I would first start with saying that governance is a way of steering our action. So any type of efforts to steer the way human interact or trying to solve certain problems is a governance effort. And I think there's a lot of misconception about governance that is only talking about, who are the actors and how do they interact, or politics or administration stuff. It's not like that. I think governance nowadays, especially in the scientific field, is now even more expanded. If we talk about the problems related to climate change adaptation or disaster risk reduction, is very much rooted on first understanding the problems. And this problem is also rooted from different type of systems, like the physical system and also the social system and on the interaction. So now governance is very much more interdisciplinary, because we first have to understand the physical system as well and the human interaction. And after that, we see how we can identify the problems and plan for solutions. That includes, for example, looking at different actors, of course, the government, local communities, and also scientific experts, NGOs, for example, and how they can come together and work together to solve certain problems in a coordinated way. And then, of course, there's a lot of problems about the politics, the norms, like what kind of goals we wanted to do with our governance efforts. Some say, for example, would prefer for more economic development type of goals. But I think now we're talking about nature-based solutions is very much clear that our goal is for sustainability and resilience. And that needs a lot of conditions. For example, conditions of inclusivity, like how many actors are involved. Do we involve all the relevant actors? Do we have regulations for that? Do we have economic instruments? Prof. Shabazz, I think you mentioned also about this payment for ecosystem services. This is one of the economic instruments we need, especially for this nature-based solution type of efforts. And then after that, of course, we talk about the implementation. How can we improve the effectiveness of the implementation and ensure the sustainability? I think that's my brief explanation about governance. I hope that it's not too complicated.
No, that's very good, and it's very comprehensive, dear Anisa. So it's not just the institution, it's not just the actors. No. It is a much bigger concept. There must be service providers, there must be knowledge providers, there must be good regulation, there must be good implementation. And it's a full process we need to understand. Let's take this a little bit further for people who are very slow in understanding, like myself. Let's think of governance and DRR at a local government level. So can we go to the level of a city like you studied in Yogyakarta? How would a governance system look like in a city like Yogyakarta?
Well, I'm not particularly studying Yogyakarta as my research case, but I think this is what we call, I mean, among governance scholars, self-governance, local governance. So the way that local actors trying to steer actions to solve problems or to increase opportunities to solve problems. And that's very much rooted in the way the local communities are organizing themselves. For example, maybe just related to my PhD thesis in India, in Pichavara mangrove forest, they are given a project. I think the National Research Institute, one of the National Research Institute, MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, I think maybe some of you know this. They run a project on mangrove conservation in the local community. And I think their role is mainly to organize and also to bridge funding, but the one who is actually implementing this type of project is the local communities. They're the one who bring their indigenous knowledge. For example, they know actually before the researcher came how to manage the mangrove forest with their own local knowledge. And then they also the one who has the vision of how they wanted to manage the mangrove forest in the future and how it can bring more benefits to their well-being. This is type of self-governance. So it's not mainly how do you call it, dependent on the national government or the provincial government, but this is very much rooted in the local actions and local awareness of certain problems.
This is very important, Nisha. The reason I asked you, governance is not just a topic for DRR. It's also a topic for integrated water resource management. It's also a topic for empowering people to have good livelihood. It's also very important for the rule of law at large, so that we are safe citizens. Governance is also needed for good health systems. So, if I can learn one thing from your discussion, it is to empower people. Is there right to empower local people? They become part of solution, and there is a transparency which leads to no corruption and which leads to satisfaction of all stakeholders that they are part of the process. Would that be a good definition from your analysis which you have done?
Yes, it's all about local, not only local, but acceptance and legitimacy. So putting all the relevant actors on the table, not missing anyone who is relevant, bring more inclusivity. That's also something about self-governance and local governance, I think.
No, this is very important, and that's where we need to have a very good stakeholder mapping as well, making sure no one is left behind. That's part of the SDGs as well. So thank you very much, dear Dr. Anisa. That brings us very nicely to Dr. Ranit. We have heard about the governance. We have also heard about the example from India. Can you please, Dr. Ranit, take this concept one step further on governance, DRR, your experience in India, and how can we bring better knowledge with good governance?
Thank you, Professor Shahbaz, for that question. And I have been hearing also the other speakers. So I think it's very interesting and to understand how this governance actually is looked upon, because when we look from different sides, things look different. So I'll just try to bring 2 or 3 examples from my current engagement as a postdoctoral fellow studying 3 patches of mangroves in India, and they are linked to the livelihoods. It's just not mangroves, but the lives and livelihoods also are dependent on it. So first, I'll just give an example from Sundarbans, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and how this eco DRR or conservation has been a kind of part of their customary regulations. So in Sundarbans, there was after the Great Famine of Bengal in 1700, there was this concept developed of Bon Bibi. Bon Bibi is the forest lady of the forest, who protects the forest, and people who go into the forest for their livelihood, they follow certain customs. Like they don't before they go to the into the forest, they pray to the lady of the forest. They don't go at night. They don't carry firearms. They do not like the beehive, like honey collection is one of the major prime livelihood. So they do not torch the beehives to collect honey. So these have actually become a way to protect the nature resources, because if there is a conflict on this kind of natural resources and we do not help them in regenerating, possibly it doesn't only affect the natural resources, but also the livelihood on which people's lives are dependent. So these have already been built into the system, and it becomes a part of possibly not a written system of governance, but it's a customary way of governing the natural resources to reduce conflict. The second example from India would be the way the government of India brought in nature-based solution as part of, after the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, where huge plantations were done, as considering the mangroves would act as a shield to protect the coastal areas and the communities who are around the coast, to help them save from not only tsunamis, but also cyclones and storm surge. And that has been done in different states, and it has been very effective. If you look at the past 20 years growth of mangrove, it has now, the amount of mangrove have grown. I'm not getting into the debate of whether those mangroves are good, bad, it is dense, sparse, but the overall size of mangrove has grown. The Green Tribunal has actually given more power to the people and NGOs to actually question in case there is a destruction of the mangrove. So I guess these are very effective steps taken up not only by people, but also from the government. And also in Sundarbans, there is joint forest management, which is a combination of people and government initiative to protect mangrove. And recently in 2019, the National Disaster Management Plan also did advocacy for using eco-DRR as a way to mitigate future risk and environmental change. So I guess these all are very effective steps taken by different stakeholders to bring in a very informed approach to protect and bring in the nature-based solutions as part of DRR.
Dear Annie, thank you very much for highlighting so many examples. And I would say they are very good examples. And I especially like your answer that DRR is not alone just for reducing disasters to our property and to our lives, but by doing good practices, we can create new livelihood opportunities. And those livelihood opportunities can be more sustainable. They will make our communities more resilient. So all of that is a very, very important part of finding solutions. And that's where I would like to draw your colleagues' attention to SDGs, where SDG number 13 is climate change related, but SDG number 14 related to the oceans and 15 related to the life and land on land. They're all interrelated. And SDG number 1 about no poverty, that's about livelihood as well. And SDG number 2, which is relating to our food security. So we have to take a systems view. That's very, very critical. Unless we take a systems view and understand the multi and transdisciplinary approaches, we cannot become more resilient, more sustainable, and we cannot become efficient in dealing with the disasters, because disasters are coming again and again. So, dear Annie, thank you for your excellent examples. Let me come back to Arena to talk about another practical project. The project is about open air laboratories for nature-based solutions to manage environmental risks. So can you tell us about this open air laboratories and what is this project? Its name operandum is really very, very complicated. It looks like Einstein kind of project.
Thank you, Shahbaz, for this question. Well, after all these examples from Ranit from Asia, let me come back to Europe, to European region, where, well, common issues, common problems are related not only, but majority to floods, to storms, to coastal erosion. And, well, of course, scientists and practitioners are looking for new solutions. So UNESCO is a part of a big project. It's a EU-funded project for 4 years. It started in 2018 and has a total budget of more than 13 million. So it's a really big project that unites a consortium of engineers, scientists, and also practitioners. So the objective of this operandum is to reduce environmental hydrometeorological risks through nature-based solutions approaches that include also co-design, co-development, co-deployment of these solutions in selected territories. That we call this case study demonstration sites, open air laboratories, so large-scale implementation sites. There are several of them that are located all around Europe. Each of these open air laboratory has its own particular challenges and solutions. And here I would mention one of them. It's a natural UNESCO site, a biosphere reserve at Delta Po River, which is exposed to floods, storms, coastal erosion, to drought, so a complex picture. So together with partners, again, engineers, scientists from University of Bologna, so Italian partners, and local community, we are working on solutions how to reduce risk from all these above mentioned hazards on the territory. I would say one of solutions would be construction of an artificial sand dune to prevent coastal erosion. So this is typically an engineered solution, which is nature-based. It would be a large-scale implementation, a sand dune with more than 50 meters long. Actually, it's a series of sand dunes that would be implemented and then reinforced with different type of vegetation. This type of intervention, it takes, of course, a long period, so that's why also the project it's long lasting for 4 years, and now partners are in progress of the implementation of such solutions. So sand dune reinforced by different type of vegetation.
So that's very interesting. So let's just unpack a little bit more. The operandum says open air laboratory. So it must be open and there should be air and there should be laboratory. Is that right? Is there a closed without air laboratory as well?
Yes. No, it's open air laboratories. This is again, we like in scientific world to name and determine what we are doing. So this open air labs, it's a concept. It's a concept that unites different kind of intervention on not in the laboratory but on the territory. And of course, when we speak about open air laboratory, it's in field, basically, it's in field intervention that are done under supervision, let's say, of scientists, but on the ground in the real situation. So again,
that's very important. Dear Rina, I provoke you because in my opinion, all of us are in an open air laboratory, wherever we are. We need to bring scientific thinking, inquiry-based methods. That's where we have today with us Dr. Manzoor Somro, who has joined us from ECO Foundation, promoting open air laboratories through this inquiry base. But we need to have good science, and the science must come from the scientists, but the science should go right to the level of the citizens. And that's the advantage of programs like MAB or Global Geoparks program, and that's the wonderful work you are working in UNESCO. So that's very important. Open air laboratory means wherever we are, we use the scientific method and we contribute to eco-based systems, solutions, and improve our livelihood, improve environment, and take systems approach. So with that, let me move now to Ranit again. Ranit, operandum sounds very interesting. Do you have another big project as a postdoc with a acronym more complex than operandum? Can you tell us about the big project you are working at the Kyoto University?
Thank you, Professor Shahbaz. Let me try to match that expectation. Okay, I am part of this Belmont Forum project now, which is named Tapestry. But then when I expand Tapestry, it reads in fact, I have to write it down. I also don't remember. Transformation as praxis to reduce uncertainties in marginal environments. And we are working on India and Bangladesh in patches. And it's a very interesting project. It's a very interesting project. What we are trying to do here is we are trying to look at not from above, but trying to see if there are, those bright spots which are there from below, which can be brought up. And the idea is to support the community-led initiatives, and where we scientists come in and support through our scientific evidence-based approaches to see if those community-led initiatives and community narratives actually has a ground and can be fed into the policies, which is very important because most of the policies come from top down. So in this project, I'll just give you briefly what we are doing. We are working on the swimming camels. I just intentionally mentioned swimming camels because for many people who are not from India and Pakistan, the swimming camels might be something new because people visualize camels as only with desert. So there is this camel whose life is dependent on mangroves, and they can swim. But there are this community who herd this camel, and their lives are dependent on the camels. So in a way, the life of this community is dependent on the camel, is dependent on the mangrove. And if we can conserve this now endangered species of camel, a breed of camel, there is a way that the mangroves can be conserved, because there's a local narrative which says that when the camels eat mangrove, they grow. But we don't know till what point do they grow, until after which there is a tipping point which is reached, and then the growth goes down. So currently in this project, we are trying to understand what is that tipping point. Because when there's this concept of animals chewing on plants, which helps them in growing. But what is that tipping point is very important to understand, to prove that there is a need for the community to go to the mangroves, because now all this government regulations also put a check on communities' access. There is a power dynamics which is happening there. So in order to balance all of these, what we are trying to do is change these camels, which were a cultural asset to this community who never used to sell their milk, change it to an economic asset where they are selling the milk, so that it becomes an incentive for them to protect the camels and in a way to protect the mangroves. So this is in short what we are trying to do, change cultural asset into an economic asset.
So this is very interesting example, dear Anit. So we need to have the economic considerations with ecosystem service considerations, which can help also reduce risk. That's a win-win situation in my view. So if we go back to operandum, very interesting open air laboratories as Arina has described. So we need also tapestry in operandum. So we need to use tapestry in operandum because you are dealing with marginal environments. And operandum open air laboratories is, of course, in Europe doing a wonderful job using the sites like UNESCO sites to look into ecosystem-based approaches. So we can do tapestry in operandum to do better DRR. What do you think, Anisa? After these two projects, you have some ideas to share on such large projects. What's the benefit of being part of such projects like doing tapestry in operandum?
These are really excellent examples. I think I know about operandum because this is also one of the major EcoDR projects in Europe. And I've heard about tapestry now from Ranit. Sounds really hitting the spot and the knowledge, really looking for an answer to a knowledge gap. I think that's really innovative. But if I might reflect it in a more helicopter view, if I might, I think this type of projects are very important as an incubator, so innovation incubators. We need more experimentation because there's a lot of things that we know, but there's also more things that we don't know about our natural and social systems and their interaction. But then I think we have to also think even far beyond the projects, about the sustainability of the project. What will happen if the project's done? How we can scale it up, for example, how to bring all the good lessons learned from operandum, from tapestry, and then put it in practice in different contexts. Because if we talk about Europe, of course, it has different geographical characteristics, socio-economic, political characteristics, even from different Asian countries. Although we may be similar in terms of governance system, but we are different. So how we can make sure that all this type of project can be scaled up appropriately and be implemented and be accepted by the government officials, especially in the developing countries, you really need a support from the national government for this type of implementation. The other thing is integration. I think it will be really great, Prof. Shabazz, if we can just kind of put one project into the other projects, for example, like what you mentioned. But then there's also a complication in bureaucracy, our incentive fund system, for example. These are really large projects, but I think in the future, we also have to think more about how to bring in more the seed type of project that comes from the local community. How to, for example, Ranit mentioned a very important venture to validate local knowledge. Then you need more of these local leaders, initiatives type of thing, and scale it, the knowledge up to the national and also to the global level. So the key here is appropriateness. How we can make sure that we can scale all of this project appropriately according to the context of the country.
Thank you very much, Nisha. That's really very important. How do we bring the real local context? And also the issue of scale, issue of making sure integration happens and link with the governments, link with the local communities. So all those things seem very complex, but we start in a very methodological way, and the organizations like UNESCO can help open the door with the governments. And of course, you inspires the youth and young professionals, and they can become part of the solution. So that brings me to Arina again. Dear Arina Operandum, thank you for explaining in a brilliant way open air laboratories and how they link with DRR and link with the ecosystem. How can young people be part of it? What is the link of youth and the young professionals with the programs of UNESCO? So can you please give us some idea about those people who want to say, we want to become part of the UNESCO's work, how they link with you, Arina, and the others?
Thank you, Shabazz. Well, first, I could not agree more, and happy to hear from Anissa about, I completely agree with your point of view. Example from Operandum. So yeah, it's worth mentioning actually that because the project, it unites a consortium of more than 20 partners from different organizations, university research, small enterprises, and international organizations as UNESCO. And we I should say that gender distribution is quite balanced, gender and age distribution. So there are around 100 people that are constantly full-time involved in the project, and half of us are women. That includes the project coordinator, Professor Silvana Di Sabotini from University of Bologna, and many major tasks and work packages, and are led by female scientists and project managers as myself. Also, many project activities are led by young professionals. So let's expand the young professionals until the range between 30, 35. These are postdoctoral researchers or young experts, engineers, project managers. Again, I'm within this merge of age. Talking about project actions, I mentioned that Operandum focuses a lot on co-creation and engaging of stakeholders. So here at local level, within these open air laboratories, the actions at local level are often driven by local youth that are engaged in local environmental actions. So these are small scale, you inspire organizations working on environmental issues again. So speaking about UNESCO's work on youth and nature-based solutions, there are many ways, of course, to be involved. I would mention one of our very active network. This is a Men and Biosphere Youth Network. So it's UNESCO program that engage youth as actors of change to be involved in the governance of biosphere reserve around them. So local representative from the youth that are connected to Men and Biosphere, to biosphere reserves, they gather, I think it's every year or every 2 years at MAB youth forums, where these youth representative, they raise issues concerning UNESCO, concerning MAB program, and the network of biosphere reserves through their MAB national committees. So I invite the young participants of webinars to explore these UNESCO sites or biosphere reserves around them and see how they can contribute to their development.
This is very interesting, dear Arina. So there are many opportunities. MAB is a program you have mentioned, Man and Biosphere program. In Indonesia, we have also, of course, we started Inspire from Indonesia, and Dr. Rahma is with us as one of the pioneers, of course, with the Ardhito, and many young people are contributing like Dr. Nisa. So MAB is a very wonderful program with the biosphere reserves where we bring young people together. Here in Indonesia, we have also the Climate Change Leaders Program, which works with the Climate Reality Project of ex-Vice President Al Gore. So we are doing quite a lot of interesting things. So if anybody wants to become part of these efforts with UNESCO, most welcome to contact our office in Jakarta if you are close by in Asia Pacific. We have 13 field offices in Asia Pacific. And of course, you can also link with Arina in our headquarters, and I'm sure she will guide you with a wonderful smile. That brings me now to Anisa. Anisa, with all these great ideas which have been expressed so far, can you please give us some idea? How can we continue to inspire, excite, bring young people to these initiatives? Or do they need to be inspired, or they're already inspired and people like me need to be inspired by them? Tell me more about this, dear Anisa.
Thank you, Prof. Shahbaz. Yeah, I think youth nowadays already taking a very, very strong leadership, especially in environmental issues and climate change. We see how Greta Thunberg initiative, for example, Friday for the Future initiatives, really massive global initiatives that shows that the young people has been already thinking about how to solve future problems. But then I think what is missing here is more support and understanding that they including them is not only for a symbolic purpose, but really trying to involve their voice, hearing their voice, and also trying to motivate their work. Especially we're talking about science and technology here, as well as in practice, young people as practitioners, for example. There's a lot of platforms. You mentioned a lot of good initiatives in involving youth. We also have this UN Major Group for Children and Youth, which is also a platform for young people below 30. We have been engaged in many of the UN processes, including the UN DRR processes, Sendai Framework, Climate Change Adaptation, Paris Agreement, etc. But we also have to start thinking about engaging more local youth. I think Irina made a very good comments there. How to actually bring up their voice and learn from their experience, because they are the frontliners, especially if we talk about disasters. Usually they are the first responders. They are the one who mobilize their community to be resilient. And yeah, talking about nature-based solution, there's a lot of concept, eco-DRR, EBA. They are very scientific-based concepts. But what we need to realize is that the message behind all of this concept, that we have to go back to nature, have to balance with nature. And this is something that we have to introduce more and more to our young generations. And to ensure them that they don't need to be involved in a large project to be an advocate of nature. They can start anytime, any day, with their more awareness about conserving the environment, be more, saving energy, saving water, planting mangroves, or whatever initiative they can do at their neighborhood. It's already enough, because these type of local initiatives will actually scale up by itself. If we do more and more efforts, and then it will be kind of like a snowballing actions that will, inspire the world, I think. Yeah, that's my message.
Okay, let me unpack a little bit more. Anisa, you said we need to support. The support is the key, which is missing. When you are an undergraduate student, you wanted to be, if I could recollect correctly, you wanted to be an electronic engineer. Then you went into geography, and then you did wonderful work doing a PhD, linking climate change, DRR, systems thinking, governance. What could have been the support when you were a young student, which could have been offered, and who can be those people who can offer such support?
Well, I would say that I'm very privileged, because all of my lecturers and also my mentors at that time really supporting me to develop myself, to go abroad and studying. But it's not the case for many of our students and teenagers, especially in the developing countries. They really have to fit in one small box of successfulness, of having a high salary and have a good positions job. But it kind of reduced the way they see about the future problems and how the potential of them to solve this type of problems. So
Yeah.
I think as a mentor, for example, you can always try to support your students, or maybe as a a senior in certain department, you push your young staff, for example, to develop themselves, to find their calling, because the future is on their hands. And I think the older generation should really realize that this is the time for the young people to take the responsibility, and also to be more like showing up in more to be more leaders of the future.
So we need good mentors. That's very important. People who can support us when we are not too sure. People who can be assuring not just that you need to have a good job, good bank balance, you must have a good husband, good wife, a good house, but someone who can give a meaning to life. What is the purpose to be? And what is the meaning of training in our life? Where is our destiny? How can we contribute to sustainability and resilience? So for that, we need good mentors. And I'm sure, Anisa, you can be now a mentor. You think you can be a mentor to somebody who needs to find the pathway?
Well, I'm still learning myself, because learning is a long life journey. Even with mentoring someone, you also learn from someone that you mentored. But I think we can all learn together, and I will learn from all of you, from you, Prof. Shahbaz, and other colleagues in the Inspire Alliance and Indonesia. So sure, I'm happy to learn
So it's
together.
not to be a mentor only, but a mentee at the same time. Keep your mind open that learning is multi ways. Whenever you help somebody, you help yourself. That brings me to the last question to Ranit. Ranit, you have been part of this You Inspire, and we met in Jakarta. And you know, my job is to probe people, and I probed you as well. You have a very important link in India, a wonderful country, amazing people, and you have also been working in Japan. With your experience in India and Japan, can you tell us your learnings from this You Inspire network and this DRR area, and how can we continue to promote more? And where Anisa has left this showing the pathway to young people, and also to those people who are not so young but still young like me. How can we guide them to think proper and better, and how You Inspire can continue to inspire people?
Sure. I think that's a very important question, and I saw also some people writing that in the question and answer chat box. So I guess this You Inspire, the journey of You Inspire Alliance and this network, and possibly the handholding that has happened from UNESCO and also other UN agencies and beyond UN agencies. I guess that's a very important aspect, and I'll go back to my first, the first question when you asked me. I was saying that you remember that when I wanted to take up this decision of going into disaster management studies, I didn't have someone to consult. So now what we try to do is we, as Anisha also said, we become at least that point of source of information so that person can make some informed decision. It is not just you are jumping into a blind, like in a well, without understanding whether there is rock or whether there is water or whether the well is deep or how it is. So I think that's a very important step which this U-Inspire Alliance does. That's one. The second is it also connects people, and by connecting people, it also is transferring knowledge. And that's very important because one aspect I think which I would like to focus here is, though it's not only about youth and young professionals, but also how youth and young professionals connect to the earlier generation. Because many of these nature-based solutions, when you call about this nature-based solutions, citizen science, or the knowledge base, possibly as we shift from rural to urban, that's what is happening in most of the countries, we are losing this knowledge base. It is not getting transferred. People are getting more technology savvy, and possibly we are not trying to bring in this years of experience which has given us certain ways of living life, which has been built into it. So I think that as that knowledge base also gets transferred through such kind of U-Inspire network. And I guess in India, what we are trying to do is we are reaching out to universities, we are doing online sessions, we are doing podcasting. We are not waiting for someone to contact us, but we are contacting them. Are you interested in learning about disaster management? Are you interested in climate change? I can tell you. So I think it's a more proactive approach rather than a reactive approach. So in a mentor-mentee relationship also, you can have a proactive mentor and a reactive mentor. So we are trying to be the proactive mentor here and trying to reach out to everyone. You learn, it's up to you. You don't want to learn, still we are here to tell you. I think
that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Being persistent and with the right ideas, dear Anit. So we're running out of time, but certainly these are very important messages. You want to say any last brief words, dear Anit? Just one or two lines where you see the future taking us for U-Inspire.
I think the future of U-Inspire is really bright. Only thing what we need to do is we need to have U-Inspire as an institutional member, possibly at the national level, and making it just not voicing, but also by action, showing by action that we make a change on ground, and not at national level, but at local level, because that's where the change needs to be made. So I think that's something that we are focusing on as a U-Inspired members. And I think that's something which we are trying to achieve in next coming years, few years.
That's wonderful. You remember my challenge to U-Inspire is you should become the accreditation body for somebody to become a young DRR professional. When you put U-Inspire stamp on them, then the employers should open the doors for them. So thank you very much, Ranit. Dear Arina, any last words you want to say? I'm sure you are inspired by all these inspiring ideas, including your own.
Thank you, Shahbaz. Well, I would just thank you and the organizers for this opportunity, because we need to create all these moments of interactions. And I see by the high level of participation that this topic is interesting all around the world, right? And that all of us, and in Asia and in Europe, myself from Russia and Central Eastern Europe, let's say, we are all driven, well, let's consider ourselves young representative of young professionals, we are driven by the same issues. And well, it's, I hope that it will be an opportunity to connect for me also with the dear speakers. And well, thank you for via this webinar I have new connections, so that's perfect. Well, again, thank you. It was very inspiring. Well, it was a pleasure being with you.
Thank you. And Anissa, your final words. How can we change the world with your wonderful ideas?
Start doing it. So we talk and talk and talk, a lot of talking also at the UN level. But I think what's missing is immediate actions. We all know about the problems. Now it's the time to start the actions. And I think the youth can already start doing things. They're already doing a lot of things. And I also would like to take this opportunity to thank the UNESCO Inspire Alliance. I think we can strengthen even more collaboration in the future, also at the global level. And I just also wanted to echo what Ranit mentioned before, that connection is essential. I think this enables us to learn from each other initiatives and to kind of echo the message, a common message that we wanted to share with the world. So yeah, thank you so much for this amazing session.
Thank you very much. So that's all the time we have. Let me formally thank our three speakers, Dr. Anissa, Dr. Ranit, and Dr. Arina. I'm sure it must be very clear their journeys have come from different angles. They have come from natural sciences, geography, glaciology, architecture, and have become, in my view, systems thinkers about nature-based solutions. And we have also learned nature-based solutions have a role in the ecosystem-based approaches to solve the big challenges of our time, including reducing disasters, including adaptation to climate change, including livelihood, food security, and very importantly, life below water and life above land. So all the SDGs, the Sendai framework, they can benefit if we, first of all, think properly, understand what nature-based solutions are, understand the standards setting work of IUCN, UNEP, UNESCO, and others, and then bring step-by-step approach, and very importantly, the good governance practices. Understand what governance means. Understand how knowledge becomes part of the good governance, and how can we offer those solutions at various levels. How we scale up and how do we scale down. And at the same time, how do we empower young people? How do we go from rhetoric to action? That's very, very important. So this series of discussions on Let's Talk DRR between U-Inspire Alliance and UNESCO, all these ideas have been discussed in a wonderful way. Nature-based solutions have a role for today and for the future to come. We need engineering solutions, we need architectural solutions, but we need also to have proper emphasis on nature-based solutions. We need to make our professionals green, not by painting them green, but bringing these ideas into their mind. And that's where we need to continue to engage and empower our young professionals and youth, and make sure there are pathways for them. There should be good mentorship and there should be good mentorship. We should be proactive and we must challenge each other. At the same time, we should continue to progress to a better level of understanding of what nature-based solutions are, how can they be put in place, what is the role of the government, what is the role of the local communities, and we must continue to challenge. Is it better to build a seawall, or do we need to have the solutions which are like mangroves? Should we continue to build more of dams, and should we continue to have more of the dikes, or should we have better management of our catchment systems? Should we continue to deal with debris flows, or should we stabilize our slopes by having proper kind of vegetation? How we continue to understand the processes of climatology and hydrology and better science, and how we bring this science to the level of a common person, to the citizens. And this is our challenge. There are many programs, and very importantly, the large projects, open air laboratories like Operandum and Tapestry with the marginal environments, very interesting projects. So we welcome you to learn them, understand them, and very proactively link with wherever the knowledge is. UNESCO is ready to link with you. If you want to link in Asia Pacific, we have 13 field offices, including our regional office for natural sciences. So please link with us. I've put my own LinkedIn link, put your own LinkedIn links, link with each other, network with each other, learn from each other. Let's move from talking only DRR to implementing solutions. With that, I thank you all and give the control back to Sela as the master of ceremonies. Thank you to all of you for being with us and for listening. Sela, over to you.
Thank you. I would like to say thank you to Professor Shahbaz Khan, Dr. Irina Pavlova, Dr. Anissa Trianti, and Dr. Anichar J for the insightful talk. We hope that our 2 days fruitful discussion could expand our knowledge and empower all the youth and young professionals' interest on nature-based solution for DRR. We also hope this topic will motivate all of us to contribute actively on DRR's action. Dear participants, this concludes our last session of Let's Talk DRR series for this year. We have organized 6 episodes of Let's Talk DRR. If you are interested to watch this whole conversation again, please visit UNESCO Office Jakarta Facebook or You Inspire YouTube channel. For today's question, we will compile all the questions from Zoom chat box, and the organizer will arrange for these questions to be answered. I would also like to remind all participants, if you are interested to get certificate of participation for this session, please check the Zoom chat box to get the link for the questionnaire. If you submit questionnaires for the certificate, we will send you the certificate of participation electronically. Please be reminded, the attendance and certificate link will only be available until 4:30 PM Jakarta time. Please make sure you do not miss our future events and keep yourself updated through our social media. It has come to the end of our session. Thank you very much for your kind attention and active engagement for today's session. We look forward to having you again in our future events. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye-bye, Sela.